What's up, GolfBusters? Today I'm going to show you how you can upholster furniture so you can take your room from looking like this to looking like this. So the first thing you're going to want to do is cut your material. I used a marine vinyl leather and I'll link that below. And then you're going to want to get your wood. I used a 3/8 plywood from Lowe's. I'll also link that below. And Lowe's is pretty sweet. They will cut it for you for like a quarter a cut, so you're able to do just kind of any straight cut as long as the width is going to be over a foot. And so that's how I did all of my 2x2 tiles. Now, my big tip with cutting the 2x2 tiles is when you ask them to cut it, if you do go to Lowe's, don't ask for 24 inches because with the blade width, it'll make your last two end up being a little shorter than the rest. So I would just ask them to cut it 23 3/4, and that should give you uniform size all the way around. If you don't go to Lowe's, you can use a table saw. That will work well if you have one of those. Next, you're going to want to get your foam. I used a 2-inch thick egg crate foam because it was like a quarter the cost of any other foam. Only downside with it is that sometimes those kind of nubs of the egg crate can kind of peek out the edges, but you don't really notice them after a while. Now, cut it with scissors or a utility blade. After a while, I realized the utility blade went fastest, so I would probably use that if I did it again. Then you got your foam, and then just make sure you put it the right way so that the flat part is facing the leather. And I'll just show you the staple gun I used. I'll link that below. Just press it in. Boom. Make sure to get staples that match the plywood. So we use 3/8 plywood, get 3/8 staples. Otherwise, it can be harder to put in. So next what I do is I just put a staple in every edge. So once you've stapled those 4 edges, now you pick one side and you start stapling. So what you want to do is just kind of pull that tight and pull it away on a diagonal to get rid of the wrinkles. And you just staple that in like every inch or 2 inch. So what I do is I do 2 sides. And then what I'll do once I do those sides, so I have those 2 sides fully finished, I'll actually rip that off and pull it tighter because things just end up loosening up and you can get it tighter that way. So once you do that, then you just staple the edges right there. And now you have everything but the corners. Now what you want to do next is just cut away the excess. Now if you're going to screw this into a wall, you probably don't have to cut it, but it looks nice. And if you Velcro it to a wall, you for sure want to cut it. And now you have kind of a cleaner looking back there, and now you're just going to do the corners. All you need to do to upholster those corners, I just take kind of the corner piece of the leather, notice it's cut a little shorter, and I just pull that down and put one staple in. Now you got the staple in, and then you're just going to kind of fold those flaps over top of each other. So you notice what I do here is I just kind of fold one side down, and then I would staple that, and then I would fold the other side down and staple it, and maybe use 2 staples for each of those folds. So the corner is going to look like that. And so now that is a fully finished piece for you right there. And now the only downside with that egg crate foam, you could kind of see at the top there is a little bit of ripples. Honestly, I noticed it a lot right away, and after a month, I never even noticed it anymore. And then as the leather kind of loosens up, that also goes away a little bit. So if you can, try to tuck that egg crate foam kind of in so those ripples don't show up as much. But either way, it's not a big deal. So here's just kind of a quick look through of what that looked like. That wall on the right side, we ended up just using 2-inch thick Velcro. If I was to do it again, I would probably, instead of drywall on that right side wall, I would probably just put plywood because the Velcro is going to stick easier to that. It's held up fine with the 2-inch Velcro, but the plywood would just be better and there's no chance of it kind of peeling off the drywall. Then all the ones on the wall, so that kind of enclosure wall, that's OSB right there, and I just screw through the OSB through the back, and then that goes into the plywood and then holds it, and then just make sure to get a screw that will not go too deep to where a ball could kind of puncture the leather. Now, just a couple quick tips with these tiles. I built these first without really testing them. Now, what I would say is these wall tiles are meant to reduce the speed and direct it into your impact screen. So you'll see I have kind of a whole flat wall, and now the left and the right side are completely fine because no one ever shanks it out there, and if you do, they'll double hit off the panels. Basically, anytime you double hit off the panels, it's going slow enough where like no one will care. Won't hurt anyone. You could reach out and catch it or grab it. But the flat wall panels, like you'll see above or what I have below, those can come back somewhat fast. So if you notice, every other enclosure is like a rectangle where once they hit the panels, they'll go right to the screen. I didn't do that at first. And so if you notice, we have that blue bumper on the bottom. And so what we did there is we just doubled up the foam over a piece and used kind of a stretchier material, we tried a tighter one at first and that ripped. So we used a stretchier material, and that's held up great. And now if you thin a drive into the bumper, it'll roll back, but it's going so slow, it's not going to do anything. And now those top panels are fine as well. I've only had 2 people out of 40 that could actually get there with their 60 degree. So, and our screen's 9 feet tall. So if I could do it again, I'd probably put it to 10 and you wouldn't have that issue. But at the end of the day, it's going to double bounce if it hits the top up there anyway. So it's not really going to hurt anyone. And then the ceiling tiles are fine as well, because the only time someone ever hits those is with like a Sky Driver. And then if you hit those with the Sky Driver, it will hit those ceiling panels and either bounce into the screen or bounce into the top panels, and once you've double bounced, you're good. But my advice with these, if I was to do it again, is probably don't put these on a wall that is directly in front of you. It should be meant for like above you or to the left and to the right. Now, just a quick tip for y'all. If you have a piece that doesn't line up perfectly and like you can kind of see the wood behind it, what we ended up doing is we just slid some of that leather kind of in that gap, and you could do that first and staple it in and then put the piece over top, and that would basically make it so it wasn't noticeable if there was any gaps.